And we're back. Welcome again to another video. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, this broadcast, this video that you're watching, has been brought to you by Samba Tree. Samba Tree is the platform that we created right here to address many of the issues that we talk about here on this platform from a natural perspective. You know, looking to nature, looking to herbs, looking to plants and all of those wonderful things. Check us out over on sambatree.com. Right now, we just introduced a brand new product. It's a tongue brush. It is we're calling it a breath brush, actually. And I want you to make sure you check this out. This is something that's way better than mints. Those sugary mints that that you're taking to freshen your breath. Well, this is way more healthier than those mints. So make sure you check it out and check out the ingredients in it. 100% natural, y'all. Listen, bad breath can it can definitely make a world of difference if your breath is stank. Okay, so we have something that's 100% natural that can address that. But of course, we don't just have things about addressing your breath. We have a lot of other things as well, addressing all kinds of issues and all of that from a natural perspective. So again, make sure you check our website out. It is sambatree.com. Let's get into the main topic at hand. And that is this trend that I have been tracking for a very long time. And that is this trend of using black bodies, black male bodies, for profit. And this has been something that's been going on for a very long time. This latest thing with Nolan Wells, I don't know if you heard this recently, but at the time of this recording, the results of the autopsy, the independent autopsy, have not been released, even though they were supposed to have been released some time ago. And their attorney, Ben Crump, was painting this picture that they were trying to get to the bottom of it, and what's the delay, why are they delaying, and really trying to paint this picture as if the local police, because it's not just local, but you also have state and you also have feds that are all in it. And just to give you an idea, when they do these autopsies, it's not something that just happens overnight. I mean, you got toxicology reports, you got all kinds of different tests that takes time. These aren't just overnight kind of tests. It takes time for this. And so that's why when you hear the results of an independent report, oftentimes you do have to take it with, I ain't gonna say a grain of salt, but you do have to question the thoroughness of it, because when you're having the state, the local, the state, and even the feds, and they still haven't released it, it's because there's a lot of more steps, there's a lot more details that they look for when they're trying to solve a particular crime, when they're doing their analysis and all of that. So an independent one isn't the final say-so. But what Crump is going to do is going to try to allude to that, and we'll get to that in a moment. But anyway, but this was supposed to have been released some time ago, and they're just now doing it. But here's what's interesting about it. As they have been pressing, that this thing has to hurry up and get out, and what's taking them so long. Well, Ben Crump and his team had already had the results for some time now. And what they decided to do is, instead of just, okay, we got the results in hand, let's get it out to the public because that's what we're trying to do. No, what they're doing is, no, we're going to wait until, you know what, let's look at the calendar. I think the best time to drop this will be at the next NAACP convention. Now, let me ask you something. If there is a autopsy of great importance, I mean, not that any of them aren't, that needs to be dropped so that the public can be informed, why would you wait? Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of anybody waiting until a conference comes up to release that information? I mean, just come on. And if you walk with me a little bit, we're going to be looking at a bunch of other things as well. Because see, here's the thing. I want people to understand is that we live in a world full of lies. We do. And for many people, it's still very difficult for them to understand that. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and say that the parents are intentionally driving this thing or anything like that at all, that they're in for it for the money. In fact, I'm willing to put the parents to the side on this for now, because again, I want to give them courtesy of the fact that at the end of the day, this was their son and their son lost his life. For how did that happen? Well, that's what investigators are trying to find out. But I'm not going to get on the train and blame these parents for anything. I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's appropriate, at least right now, until unless there's something that comes up that gives us some other reason to do that. But I'm not going to do that. But I will say this: the other participants, people like Benjamin Crump, well, he has a pretty long history in playing up the racism, and while at the same time leaving families in the wake of his mess. And I have a clip here I'm going to play for you right now of yet another person that the public has conveniently forgotten about.
But I did not continue to work with Ben Crump. I think we worked together for about 8 or 9 months. I just felt that he was avalanche chasing. He knows that. I say it to his face all the time. Yeah, I told that to him. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, him and Al Sharpton and them, and I just didn't feel that he knew what he was doing. I was getting phone calls from other attorneys stating that he didn't know the law. I wasn't feeling good about it. We just wasn't getting the answers that I wanted or I needed. And I wasn't getting like paperwork when it came to motions being filed or even, contact. Anytime they contact with the prosecutor, I need to know everything was going on with my son. He was not getting no real justice.
So they were PR advocates, rage baiting. Yeah,
I didn't.
But there's no output.
There's no
it's just like, yeah, there's a face, there's a name, say his name, Tamir Rice, but like when it comes to actually getting justice and suing the city, you had to go get somebody else to do that?
Yeah, I did. Ben Crump wasn't able to do that at the time. My wrongful docket was like 8 or 9 pages long.
With Ben Crump?
Yes. So when my third set of attorneys had got it, it ended up being 138 pages, 139 pages long. So I don't know what Ben Crump was doing. I don't know if he had the skills at the time to even take my case where it needed to be. I wasn't trying to get just hurry up and settle out of court. I really wanted you to go in there and fight. And then, they just say he wasn't a great talker back then. So I just kept getting phone calls about him. All of these folks, and nobody is showing us how to get no indictments. I had to let them know my son ain't he's not a hustle. His death is not a hustle. So I just got a little aggravated because I kept seeing all of these activists doing things in memory of people's children, and we wasn't getting no real justice.
Then, of course, you have Al Sharpton, who has a very long history with these hoaxes. We've talked about what he did in New York many, 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 many years ago with that whole hoax thing and, Tawana Brawley. And again, I mean, that just brushes the dust off and keeps it moving. It also came out that he was an agent of the federal government. But it seems as if this guy still has a way to find himself at the front, leading the charge, leading protests. And people just have this willing amnesia. And I did a video on this recently called Social Amnesia, where we talk about this, where these are publicly known facts, but yet people still go along with it, specifically black folks. A lot of black folks go along with it. Don't ask any questions. As long as you hit the main points, that's all a lot of black folks, unfortunately, they need to hear, or just the main points. There's a white person somehow behind it. We don't have any proof. We don't have any evidence, but there's a white devil behind this, and doggone it, we're going to find this white devil. Well, that's what they're doing right now with this whole Nolan Wells situation, where you have people like Tyler Perry, other people who are raising up money and saying that, hey, listen, we are going to put money on the table and we're going to find the person who basically murdered him. But the police have already said there's, in their initial report, they've already said that there's no evidence of foul play. And usually if they're saying that up front, well, that's probably the case. There is no evidence of foul play, meaning that there's no evidence, at least on the front end, of, you know, a bruising or anything like that, where he was in a physical altercation or anything like that. So on the front end, that's what they check first. Okay. Now what they're doing now is a whole toxology report where they're actually going to be finding out, okay, in his lungs, did it have a huge amount of seawater in it? Was he intoxicated? Was he taking drugs? Those kind of things they're going to start. That's what they're doing, and that's what takes a long period of time. Now, the other thing I want you to understand as well is the feds, the state, and the local have already collected all their information. They are the first people that get a hold of the body, because I want to walk people through this so you understand how this process works. They are the first that get access to the body, okay? And once they collect all the information from the body, what they do is they'll send it out to their labs and all of that. And then at that point, they release it to the family. Okay. When they release it to the family has a choice of just sending the body to the funeral home, or like in this case, you send it to someone to do an independent autopsy, which happened in this case. Now, the issue with that is the accuracy. When you're doing by the time they get the body, well, once a person dies, the body is quickly decomposing. So that's why these independent autopsies, when you actually do a search on independent autopsies and do they really make a big difference in cases, most cases they just don't, because again, the thoroughness of the autopsy is usually captured by the people who first had the body, which is the local, the state, and if it has to go to the fed level, then it goes to the federal level. So I want people to really understand that, because I am predicting what's going to happen is that it's going to be a nothing burger. And when they make this huge announcement at the NAACP conference. Now, why are they doing it at the conference? Well, again, the NAACP is an organization like a lot of these other civil rights organizations that is a dying organization. They're dying. And so, unfortunately, like the NAACP, like these organizations like the one that Al Sharpton leads, the National Action Network, and some of these others wannabe up-and-coming civil rights leaders, they look for any and all opportunities to raise their profile on a national level. And if that means using the bodies of dead black men to do that, then that's what they're going to do. And we're just going to do a quick rundown of examples of people who have done that. But I just want you to understand that, getting back to what I mentioned earlier, is that I want our viewers to understand that, yes, we live in a world full of lies. And just because someone looks like you, it doesn't mean that they're for you. I have to keep saying that to people over and over again, because we walk around with this deception thinking that these individuals are actually by default on our team, on our side, and they have our best interests at heart by default. This is a hard mindset to crack for a lot of us, because we all fall into that, and I'm in that line as well. When you see someone that looks like you, by default, you assume that they're for you, but that we can't operate like that. And what I'm saying is, when you, as we're talking about this particular case here, there are people who will use situations like this for their own advantage. I mean, and as gruesome and as horrible as that is, people do this all the time. And I want you to really understand that. But a lot of people, it's very hard for them, because we still hold on to this mindset, I'm rooting for everyone black. And that is not the smart way to go. What we want you to do here is always ask questions. Always ask questions, regardless of who the person is. Do your own investigation. And that's it. It's okay to be critical, critical minded, not critical in the sense of wanting to tear something down, but really wanting to investigate and to allow yourself to ask questions. It's okay to do that. Okay. There is no allegiance that you have to anybody, regardless of their skin color, race, whatever. It doesn't matter. You have the right and you have the obligation to be honest and thorough in your own personal research. Okay. So anyway, the fact that they are using this young man's death to elevate or to rescue the NAACP, to elevate the profile of Benjamin Crump, to elevate the profile of Al Sharpton as if he needs it, and many of these other people. Did you see that on the press conference that it wasn't the press conference, I'm sorry, it was a funeral, where on stage at the funeral of Nolan Wells, you had the parents, but you had Al Sharpton, you had Ben Crump, you had all these other people standing behind them and all of that. It's like they were competing for attention over this young man's dead body. And so anyway, let's move on. But this is not the first time that this has happened, where the body of a young black man is being used to generate money. We can go all the way back to Trayvon Martin. And many of you guys remember that story. Trayvon Martin, basically a young man that was killed by, what was his name? Mark Zimmerman. We'll just call him Zimmerman. And the details, basically Trayvon, he was jumping over a wall or a fence or something like that, and there was and Zimmerman saw him and it was like, hey, what are you doing here and all that. And then the scuffle came about where Zimmerman ended up shooting and killing him. Okay, so that caused this huge national outcry. And remember Obama coming out and saying, if I had a son, he would look like Trayvon Martin. All of that. You remember all of that, right? Well, out of that came the birth of an organization that we all know was Black Lives Matter. Yeah, because it wasn't just the death of Trayvon Martin, but you also had Michael Brown. You remember that? Eric Garner, same thing. These deaths were used as a catalyst to help launch, but largely that launch took place literally on the body of Trayvon Martin, the organization known as Black Lives Matter. Okay. And Black Lives Matter, in a nutshell, was an organization that purported itself to be one that stood for the rights of black individuals, particularly against individuals who suffer under police brutality, right? But it was also other things. It was a very gray organization. It was like, okay, Black Lives Matter. When you sit down and think about it, that's a pretty broad brush description of an organization. Okay, what exactly do you do? Black Lives Matter. What exactly do you do? And so, but when you would go to their website, and I remember going to their website, I'm talking about this years ago. I remember going to their website and looking at what are their focuses. Their focuses were pretty much left out straight black men. I mean, literally, it was LGBT and women. Those were their priority targets as far as making sure that these individuals were protected, spoken for, and provided for, that kind of thing, right? Black Lives Matter. That's what, if you go to their website, that is who they talked about. That's what their focus. There was nothing on there at all about straight black men. Everything was LGBTQ or black women. That was the only two things at all. And so it was quite interesting to me that they were the mouthpiece of these movements, these protests that were taking place during that time, that were protests that were over the death of straight black men. But yet they were generating millions of dollars. The estimates range from like 100 to 120 million. I did look it up, that this organization, Black Lives Matter, generated. And but then you find out later on that a lot of that money was spent on luxury items. It was stuff they couldn't even account for. It was going to other people's side businesses and all this other stuff. And I would say that people did get angry, obviously, but I look specifically at the black community on this. I didn't see that anger. I mean, it was people like kind of rolling their eyes, but when I think about it, when that information started coming out about how they were misappropriating this money that was generated over the lives of these black male individuals, regardless of, they may deserve to die, whatever your opinion is about their deaths or whatever. We're not getting into that. But the fact of the matter is that their lives were used to generate millions of dollars, and it was squandered. The 3 leaders of Black Lives Matter was all gay women, lesbian women. All 3 of them were. I think one maybe not, but at least 2 of them were. But the organization itself was primarily an LGBTQ black feminist organization, just like the black church. And they used the lives of these individuals to generate millions of dollars. But the thing that sticks out to me about this is that I didn't see outrage coming from the black community on that. If you stop and really think about it, did you see that? Not really. Like I just said, it was people maybe rolling their eyes about it or whatever. But other than that, it was, yeah, that's messed up. That's bad or whatever. But that was it. People kept right on going. And of course, they got free marketing during that time. Remember, everybody was hashtagging Black Lives Matter. Well, they didn't have to pay a dime for that. So they were getting free marketing. And then once the truth came out, well, we just roll on to the next thing. Well, it didn't stop there, because then later on, we remember the whole George Floyd situation. Remember that, right? What took place there, unfortunate situation where he died literally at the knee of a local police officer, right? Remember that? And what came out of the George Floyd situation was the whole DEI programs. DEI was literally launched out of that. Do you remember that? Yeah, because this took place in Minnesota, and Minnesota is the location of the headquarters of Target. All right, so Target was one of the in the corporate world was one of many corporations that initiated these DEI programs for their customers, not for their customers, for their employees, company-wide. Then you had other companies all over America that began to do the same thing. But it didn't just stop there. The federal government even jumped in on it. State government began to do that. All over the country, between in the private sector and in the public sector, you began to see these DEI policies that came out of this situation as a result, pointing back to what took place during this whole George Floyd situation. Now, I don't think a lot of people take the time to do the math on that, and quite honestly, I don't know if it's even possible to do it at this point. But DEI was something that was supposed to be designed on paper. It was supposed to be designed to benefit black individuals. But in reality, the people who benefited the most from DEI was actually white people, specifically white women that benefited the most. And then followed by white women, it was black women. So yeah, a lot of individuals, and DEI, by the way, was just a reimagined affirmative action. That's what it was. And it was affirmative action that excluded straight black men. That's really what DEI was about. DEI was primarily designed for women and LGBTQ. That's what it was designed for. And they built it off of the corpse of George Floyd. So anyway, so you had these different companies and all that creating these hiring policies, promotion policies to benefit LGBTQ and feminists off of the body of this in particular individual here. So that means you had salaries that were generated, people's livelihoods, people's lives financially became better as a result of doing all of this off of the body of this one man. And so then you had, fast forward, Trump gets into office, right? Trump gets into office. He's like, nix that, we're getting rid of all the DEI stuff. And do you remember they kept playing on repeat over and over again? They kept saying over and over again, oh my God, over 300,000 black women have lost their jobs, 300,000 black women, 300,000 black women. They kept saying this over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. You remember that? They kept saying this over and over again, how much black women have been severely impacted by what Trump is doing. Now, I'm no fan of Trump, but I'm just saying that's what they were saying, right? Well, I did see a report that came out later on that said that most of those women actually were, since then, they were able to get hired in other places. Many of them were actually going into the private sector as a result of that. But also this, 100% of those 300,000 women were actually federal employees. This wasn't, when they say 300,000, this wasn't happening in the private sector. When you look at the private sector on what black women were doing during those times when this 300,000 wholly set apart group of women had lost their jobs, black women during that same period of time were actually doing not only well, but they were doing exceedingly well during that same time. I bet you didn't hear that one. But yeah, that's what was going on during that same period of time. And so here's the thing, and I point this out because, like I said, we try to look at as much as details as possible. You know, when we're looking at a lot of these stories, one of the things when I talk about details, I'm talking about, for example, this: many of the black voices that you see in mainstream media are tied to boule class, meaning they're going to be fraternities or sorority individuals. So a lot of these people that you see in mainstream media, black voices, they are tied to those organizations. So these were the people that were actually echoing this whole thing about 300,000 over and over and over again, and how black women are just severely, oh my God, pushed into poverty, all this kind of stuff, right? Well, it was very interesting because recently I was on TikTok and I came across these videos where they had the boule recently, AKAs just had their boule convention, in Las Vegas. And yeah, they seemed like they were doing quite well, you know, so check it out.
I'm not spending over 150. I spent 85.
My name is Ari, and I think I'm gonna spend $400. I spent $415.
My name is Sydney, and I think I'm gonna spend not over $300.
I spent $800.
My name is Daria, and
So again, we live in a world of lies, you guys. People will, they put out this stuff to get you emotionally entangled, to get you all hyped up. But in reality, when the cameras go off, these people are just living their lives and they're making money off of your emotions and, most importantly, off of your ignorance. And now, in case you're wondering, on the thumbnail also had Carmelo Anthony's face on there. He's far from dead. He's in prison, and he's going to be in prison for a very long time. But the reason why I put him on there is because of the fact that, again, this is a black male whose whole situation was used to generate hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, I think they were just shy of raising $1 million. But the amount of money that was generated, just off of this whole story, it was just pathetic, because the whole situation was very clear cut and it was no mystery behind it at all. But yet, unfortunately, many black folks have no problem in throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars at a drop of a hat because it fits a certain narrative. It feeds into something in our nervous system that resonates at such a high pitch many of our people, unfortunately, black folks, can't help but to respond to it. This is why churches are so successful, because there's certain things that resonate with the individuals in these institutions that they can always continue to generate money. Now, we did an in-depth video about this some time ago where we really looked at all the different things that take place within the church. We talked about the music. We talked about even the lighting. We talked about the tone of the person's voice, all of the seating arrangements. We did a deep dive into that. We talked about how these things are specifically designed to resonate with your nervous system, to resonate with you to such a degree to get you to respond. You can check our video collection. We've done that. It's a while back. If I can remember where it is, I'll put it in the description below, and you can check out that video. We did that a long time ago. Oh, and then we have the story of 1-year-old Precious Cohen Wiley. This is the child that unfortunately died as a result of his mother and the decision making of his mother and the friend of the mother, who willingly walked into a Walmart and opted to take part in stealing from Walmart. The police, the security attempted to stop them. They didn't want to listen. They jumped into the car to attempt to escape. I mean, it was just a minor thing. It wouldn't even have been jail time or anything like that, but they turned it into that. And in addition, in their attempt to escape, they actually crashed into another car. Now, once you do that, and you're endangering the lives of other people around you, and then, according to police, the police said that they were actually driving in the direction of a police officer who was on foot. Once you do that, the police have every right to basically treat that as you are driving literally in a deadly weapon. And so that's when the bullets begin to fly from the police officer, and the mother made another ridiculous error by holding up her child as a human shield to say, "Don't shoot." Now, what mother in their right mind would do something like that? Well, she did. And then when she did that, of course, the baby caught one of those bullets and died, right? But it didn't stop there, because at the funeral, she decides to take these pictures, showcasing the money that she received by donation of other people. Does this look like a mother in grief? I don't want to hear the excuse that, oh, she's young or she didn't know. No, this is a mother. And this is yet another example of how even the lives of a baby, 1-year-old male child, that's literally being used for profit. And all of these examples I just gave you in this video here are the signs of a dying culture. That's just what it is, you guys. When you are using the lives, and I can just as easily find examples of black women who are being used in similar ways. We could have a whole discussion on that. But in this video, I wanted to really zero in. We've talked about this before, but in this particular video, I wanted to get it all in one video to show you the many examples of how black male bodies are literally being used for profit by the members within their own so-called community. Does this sound like a community that you want to be part of? Remember, like I always say, you can't spell community without the word unity. Are you unified with this kind of behavior, with this kind of decision making? You unified with that? These are things that I want you to think about as the viewer, as the listener. Of course, it's up to you. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments below. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. You guys take care, and I'll see you in the next video.